I know why you're here. Let's talk about books. So in 2025, I read 34 books. I know, it's a huge accomplishment. I'm so proud of myself. Actually, it is a big accomplishment. That's more than I've read in a really long time. And it's all because I started tracking what I was reading on Goodreads. So thanks to Goodreads, I now have a list of all of the things I read this year. And I learned a ton of stuff from all the books I read this year. First is the Little House on the Prairie series. And I know with someone my age, you think, why have you not read this before? But I literally had never read this series before, and it was so enlightening. I think adults nowadays should read it because it's so amazing, all the things that their family did. Their family went through so much hardship and had so many things happen in their lives that it really puts in perspective your modern life and how easy you have it. I feel like I learned a lot about resilience and mental toughness, just realizing all of the hard things you actually can do. And I learned a lot about what I should be grateful for. I feel like every day when I was reading the book, I would find something new that I was grateful for. Things like butter and salt, being able to eat more than potatoes. And it's really cool when a book can do something like that for you. And so I was just really grateful that I got to read that whole series. I learned a lot. Next up, Anne of Green Gables series. And I know you're thinking the same thing. You're like, she seriously has never read Anne of Green Gables? What is wrong with this person? I have tried in the past to read it, and for whatever reason, I couldn't get past part of the first book. But this was my year, and I loved it. I absolutely love this series. I learned so much. Of course, the very best one is the very first one. We can all agree it's just a beautifully written story. It's perfect in so many ways. And Anne is just a beautiful, lovable character. But reading through the whole series, I learned so much. I loved her descriptions of nature. I just think about it often when I'm out on my walks, just how beautiful nature was and how connected they were to nature. And it makes me think that's the kind of world I want to live in, and I want to see the world that way through Anne's eyes. And then I also loved her relationship with her neighbors. It didn't matter where she was living, she always found time to go and visit her neighbors and make connections with them. And it didn't matter how old the other person was. They were always making connections with people across generations. And it inspired me. It made me want to make time for relationships that are right outside my door. And it made me realize that it would make life richer. Then, since I was on an Ellen Montgomery kick, I got into Emily of New Moon and read that whole series. And one of the things that inspired me about that was that in the book, Emily is a writer and she gets rejected a lot. And I think in our modern world, we don't spend enough time remembering that that is part of the process, that failure is just a guaranteed when you're trying to start something new. I think a lot of times when you hear stories about writers, they'll say, I got rejected all these times, but I think in general, we forget that that's just part of everything that you're trying to do. You're going to do terrible at the beginning. And so it was really inspiring to me to just continue on and keep trying, and you're going to get better. The next two books are two books that I read with my kids. The first one's called Betsy, Tacy, and Tib. I love this series. I read it with my girls when they were little girls. My girls are now older. My oldest is in high school. But it starts out with two little friends that are 5 years old in the 1900s. And I mean like the year 1900. And it's just captivating, just talking about childhood and friendship. And my daughter, Gretchen, who is 6, she absolutely loves this series. She can't wait until I read the next chapter. And it's so surprising because it's so old, right? The stuff they're talking about is not stuff that's going on in her daily life. They had the first horseless carriage and stuff like that. She just loves it. And it's really cool to see that something so unique and wholesome can really connect with your kids today. The other one I read to my boys was just Charlotte's Web, and of course that is a beautiful classic. If you have never read it, please read it with your kids. If you love the movie, it's very similar to the movie, so go and check it out. The next one I also read with my kids, it's a series called Gone Away Lake and Return to Gone Away Lake. And this is one of our very favorites. This was set in maybe the 1950s or something. It's about these kids that go visit their grandparents for the summer or something like that. And they discover this town that is totally dried up because the lake dried up. And they just go exploring and just have a great time. And it is so captivating. My kids love this book. This is the second time we've listened to both books in the series. But I enjoy it too. It's such a fun read. I love to read it in the summertime because it's so adventurous and it's all about the summer. So put that on your list for this year. The next one is Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None. And this one, don't you love when you have a book and it reminds you of where you were when you read it? So this one, I was driving home. We had just had a really fun weekend with all of my sisters at my parents' house. And I have about a 4.5 hour drive home from my parents' house. And I listened to it there and on the way back. And it's just such a great classic. I'm not big into murder mysteries. This is the only murder mystery on my list. But it's a classic and it's fun to read. You need something captivating and engaging while you're driving. Another one we listened to this summer, as you can tell, we like to listen when we're driving, and often in the summer we're driving a lot more as we're going to different places. I try every summer to listen to a classic with my kids because I feel like it's a real easy way to get classic literature into your kids, and they have nothing else to do, so they get really engaged with the story. So we listened to Black Beauty, which was great, and everybody really liked it. I was so surprised in the book. They have this whole chapter talking about keeping the Sabbath day holy. And they talk about how good it is for the horses and for the workers and how blessed the man is, the main character, because he isn't willing to work on Sundays. And I just thought, this is a really cool, uplifting book. I didn't even know it had this little gem in it. Another one I read this year, I guess I picked it up at the library. I'm not sure why I picked it up. It's called Mythmaker. It's about the life of J.R.R. Tolkien. And I am really fascinated by Tolkien. I actually am not a huge Lord of the Rings fan. I just find him a fascinating person. There's actually a really cool movie about his life from 2019. It's called Tolkien. So if you're in the mood for a good movie, check that out. But anyway, I liked the book. It was really interesting learning about his life and being a writer and all of these things. It was just a quick, short, enjoyable read. Next, this is one of the only nonfiction on my list, I read the book Born to Walk, and I will link below the video I made about how impactful it has been in my life to make walking my major form of exercise. But this is the book that got it all started. This is where I finally realized, hey, this is something that is life-changing. This is something that is really powerful, and it really changes the way you look at less intense exercise. So I really loved it. I first listened to a podcast where he was interviewed. It's called 1,000 Hours Outside. So that is kind of where I got my start. I can also link that as well if you want to check that out. My last two books are religious. So I also read this year, when I sub at the school, I don't have a lot to do. So I have started reading the history of our church. It's called Saints. And it's this big, giant 4-volume narrative history. It's interesting. It's got tons of stories in it. And it's available online, so it looks like I'm doing something on my computer, but I'm really just reading this book. But I loved reading the book. I am a big history buff. I love history. And I just feel like it just helped me understand things a lot better. And there were a lot of really powerful stories. I remember this one story from World War II where somebody put a picture of the temple. A temple is something that we use for worship. They put a picture of the temple in their window. And that's how soldiers realized that they could go to this house and receive the sacrament. And it was just really powerful. And I don't think I would have read those stories anywhere else. So I really enjoyed reading Saints. It really did change me and help me. The last book that I read in 2025 was the Book of Mormon. And this is not necessarily like a religious video where I'm trying to get you to read the Book of Mormon or something, but I just think it's interesting when people make their best books of the year that they don't include these things that are essential to them, things that really change them and make their lives better, something they read every day. I know for most Christians it's the Bible, and I of course love the Bible too, but the Book of Mormon is life-changing, and it makes me a better person, it makes me happier, it makes me hopeful. And I try every year to read the Book of Mormon, and it has made me better. It's made me a better person. I actually have a video about reading the Book of Mormon if you're curious about my beliefs and why it's something I try to prioritize every day. So those are my books that I read in 2025 that I really loved. I would love to hear about the books that you have read this year. So please, in the comments below, leave me a book recommendation. And let's be friends on Goodreads. It's so fun on Goodreads. You can see when somebody finishes a book and they leave a recommendation. And then we can easily share throughout the year the books that we're reading with each other. So I'll leave a link to that below. And be watching, I'm gonna post a video about the books I'm hoping to read in 2026, or books that sound interesting to me in 2026. So be sure to check back for that as well. I'll talk to you next week.